Ooh, hey, how's it going? How is it going, everyone? So, yeah, here to talk a little bit more about the previous episode of season 6 of Better Call Saul. Hey, how's it going, Parker Johnson? So, yeah, I'm doing well on this Friday evening. Hope you're doing well as well, Alameda Army. So, it was a good day. I rewatched a little bit of the previous episode of Fun and Games. I got around to listening to the Insider podcast for the first time. That was pretty interesting. Got to hear some perspectives of the creators of this episode. To tell you the truth, right off the bat, I really do feel like they got, not that this was necessarily a bad thing, but they really did talk a lot about the production of the episode and the behind the scenes sort of inside baseball, if you will, of the filming of the episode, which is pretty interesting. But they didn't really get too much into the sort of the creators' opinions on where the characters' heads were at. They talked about it a little bit for sure. There was discussions of some scenes, such as the scene of Mike and Manuel Varga, the scene of Kim and Cheryl Hamlin. They talked about that a little bit, but they didn't get it. They didn't get into the sort of grander implications, if you will, of the time jump and everything of to that effect. So still a lot of intrigue for sure. Just to sort of, so I don't bury the lead here, I definitely didn't get the vibe that this was the last we have seen of really any character. It didn't really seem like, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't, it didn't sort of like, it didn't come across as a sort of memorial service for characters like Kim and Gus and Mike. They definitely didn't speak of it as we were never going to see those characters again. And again, while I talked a little bit about the sort of immediate in the moment breakup of Jimmy and Kim, the sort of grander implications were not touched on, which again, this is just sort of me reading into it here without any sort of, I guess, confirmation of any of this, but I definitely think we're going to see Kim Wexler again. The exact capacity of that, now that's the big question, isn't it? Hey, how's it going, Justin Cruz? Hey, how's it going, Candy Nose Twin Skins? Hey, how's it going, Tracy Plan as well? At Leo 5208 back for more soul withdrawal therapy. That's funny, man. So, again, don't really know where to start here, I guess. Again, truly, I don't know where to start, but as I'm kind of talking initially after listening to the Insider podcast, I'd have to say, hey, how's it going, Nick Russ? I definitely think there's no way this is the last of Kim Wexler, just in my opinion. And if it is the last of Kim Wexler, they sure did a very good job hiding it in the Insider podcast because I just did not get that vibe at all. Not to mention, we have this teaser here that I almost forgot about, that people reminded me about in the comments section of some of my most recent videos, how during the mid-season break we saw this teaser of dialogue we have not yet seen before, where Kim Wexler, again, we don't know exactly when, again, with the context of her leaving the law at the end of the previous episode, I have seen the theories that Kim will likely return to the law, maybe, which again, I guess by definition, maybe is a sort of, it's definitely on the happy ending spectrum, if you will, but this sort of teaser here of I, Kimberly Wexler, again, do solemnly swear that as an attorney and as a counselor of this court, I will conduct myself uprightly and according to law. I will maintain civility at all times and abstain from all offensive personality. I will never seek to mislead the judge. Again, all things that, again, I don't know if she has misled the judge, but definitely going against this oath for sure, or jury by any artifice or false statement of fact or law. Again, Saul Goodman has definitely gone against all of this for sure, and that I will support the Constitution of the United States. Again, that was the sort of teaser here that was released during the mid-season break. And yeah, again, I definitely don't think it's the last of Kim. And I definitely think we're going to get this sort of reunion in some capacity. Again, when this teaser came out initially, I definitely thought maybe this would be a flashback scene of some kind to sort of juxtapose the sort of just complete, I guess, annihilation of this oath, if you will, by what they did to Howard Hamlin compared to when Kim, I would imagine, had to take this oath when she was originally sworn in as an attorney many years ago. But of course, now, like I said, with her leaving the law, I just think maybe she returns. Maybe that's what they're sort of alluding to here with the benefit of hindsight. I'm not really sure. But to sort of get into the sort of premise of what I want to talk about here, about whether or not I think, Jimmy and Kim deserve this happy ending. Again, that sort of goes to the sort of whole ambiguity of every single character that remains in Breaking Bad, in the plot of Better Call Saul, and characters from the plot of Breaking Bad who are going to reemerge in this story, presumably next week, if you hear all of the reporting that's going on with characters like Walter White, Jesse Pinkman, Kim Wexler, Saul Goodman, Mike Ehrmantraut, Gus Fring. And again, it's so interesting how this show, it really blurs the line of good versus evil. And again, I feel like I've talked about this a lot, but of course, the main premise of the show with a character like Walter White, who, again, there's just so much empathy for, and you understand the sort of his actions based on the hand he's been dealt. But over the course of this series of Breaking Bad, to, talk about the show that preceded Better Call Saul, at some point, again, it's very subtle, and you almost don't even realize it dissipating, but your sympathy and your empathy for his character and your understanding of his actions really starts to dissipate as the show progresses. And truthfully speaking, it's pretty similar with all of these characters, if you will. And even a character like Gus Fring, I was going back and rewatching a little bit of season 4 of Breaking Bad, and it's so sort of interesting where you have these sort of main two story arcs. You sort of have the story of Gus Fring and the story of Walter White, and the line is really blurred on who is the protagonist here, who is the antagonist. We have this character Gus Fring who is absolutely trying to kill Walter White, who was the main protagonist of the show, who we're all rooting for back in season 1 of Breaking Bad. But during season 4, again, we're definitely, at least me, I feel like most of the audience is by nature rooting for Walter White, but at the same time, Gus Fring, he doesn't really come across as a true antagonist, because there's this whole other subplot that's going on with his revenge against the cartel, which is completely, which Walter White is completely ignorant towards. He knows absolutely nothing of it. He hears a little about it from Hank Schrader when they're doing their stakeouts. After Gus Fring kills all of the cartel members after the episode entitled Salute. I think that took place in Crawl Space, if I'm not mistaken, where he's asking Hank about, the what went down in Mexico, where he heard, like, there was a lot of bodies, and he asked him, were all of them cartel members? And of course, Hank said he wasn't in the loop enough to know. But it's so interesting how this show sort of set up this entire secondary story arc of Gus Fring, and it's really ambiguous of whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. And it's, again, even that sort of, that very notorious at this point wine bar scene that I've seen a lot of people talk about, and I made a video about yesterday. Again, it just so sort of, I find myself just this sort of emotions I have of the scene of where you get to see sort of this side of Gus Fring, but at the same time, he was sort of the antagonist in Breaking Bad, and you were rooting against him, but at the same time, you're sort of rooting for him in the plot of Better Call Saul. So again, the line of all of the sort of morality and who is good and who is evil, it's really blurred here. And again, that's one of the reasons why I absolutely just completely fell in love with Breaking Bad as a show, and why it was just a seamless transition to loving Better Call Saul as well. And the same thing sort of goes for characters like Saul and Kim, and where again it's, we root for Saul in many respects, but at the same time he did so many not great things in the plot of Breaking Bad. And of course you can sort of put your own spin of nuance on all of the things he did, such as poisoning Brock, or even just facilitating methamphetamine to begin with. This is a not good substance that Walter White and Jesse Pinkman are making. I know you can maybe take the Gail Bedecker approach and say, well, I'm a libertarian and these people are going to do it anyway, and I'm at least giving them the sort of unadulterated product with, exactly what they asked for. But at the same time, this is a very destructive, drug, and really sort of impacts a lot of people. I even go back to that sort of Peekaboo episode where, we see the sort of impact of Walt and Jesse's methamphetamine, where, yeah, you can say, Spooge and his lady were going to do it anyway. But again, I don't want to get too much into a philosophical question, but you saw the way that their child, the redheaded child, who I don't even know if didn't have a name, but you saw he was sort of a, in the unintended consequences path of everything that was happening here. And of course, it's kind of hear no evil, see no evil for, all of these people, Walt, Jesse, and even Saul, that, children are living in this absolute squalor. And yes, maybe there was a happy ending there. Maybe if social services took him out of that house, and now he's living in foster care. I mean, again, I guess that's better than what he was doing before, but again, it's it's kind of when you really sort of peel back the layers of the onion here, where you're like, you root for Saul, we've seen him since Breaking Bad, and again, we see him as sort of the protagonist here, but it's weird. It's like, does he really deserve this happy ending that maybe he's going to get, just based on the nature that, Walter White sort of got a happy ending too? Again, it was pretty ambiguous. It was a very neutral. It definitely wasn't a sad ending. It wasn't a sort of completely tragic ending. It wasn't all for nothing for Walter White. I mean, he left his son with $10 million for all intents and purposes. He avenged Hank Schrader's death, his brother-in-law. Again, as Manuel Vargas said, this is more akin to revenge than justice, if you will. So, yeah, again, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, you could literally go back and forth all day and just have this sort of philosophical debate. There is no right answer to any of this. That's why I love the show, because it's so thought-provoking and it really makes you think. It's not like some sort of, I guess there's a time and a place for these, but it's not some sort of 80s action movie where it's pretty straightforward. It's good versus evil, and there's not a lot of gray area in all of it. So, at Kevin's Swiber, yeah, is it Monday yet? Good question. It'll be here before we know it, so. At Coconut Head, could Kim be pregnant? I don't know. I heard that fan theory. I've seen that theory out there, but I mean, at this point, with Kim basically being no part of Saul Goodman's life anymore, and with us jumping at least a year ahead, you would imagine that the kid has already been born. So, and again, that's sort of to like go back to sort of Kim Wexler. I talked a little bit about Saul here, but with Kim Wexler too, it's kind of funny. I mean, when you go back and sort of think about everything they did to Howard Hamlin, when Howard Hamlin's sort of telling them off, it is kind of true. I mean, if nothing happened to Howard and he just left and went about his life like Howard said, I'm going to land on my feet, we really wouldn't think much of it. It's true. It almost comes across as just practical jokes, if you will. But again, when we sort of, like the sort of title of the previous episode alludes to, it's all fun and games until someone gets hurt, it really just changes the perception of even a character like Kim, where, again, it's the unintended consequences of it. And I mean, just because she didn't intend for this to happen, does that really mean she bears absolutely no moral culpability in any of it? That's sort of a big question there, where, there's definitely an argument to be made that she doesn't bear total responsibility, but I feel like she definitely bears a lot of it. And this is what happens with hubris, and when you, I guess, fly too close to the sun. Is that sort of the Icarus sort of metaphor as well? So, at Timothy Coombswell, if you're talking about Kim, again, it's sort of, I'm sort of racking my brain right now about how I even feel about her character. And again, like I said, so much nuance for sure. But it's true. If Howard didn't die, then we really would have thought none of any of this. And of course, Jimmy and Kim would have likely stayed together. And one of the reasons why that, at least they talked about this a little bit on the Insider podcast, but I feel like Kim just really felt that if she didn't break, at least the creators were kind of alluding to this. I'm not sure if it was Peter Gould who said this, or it could have been someone else. But Kim was really just thinking, if I don't leave this relationship, we're just going to go down this death spiral once again. No matter how much Saul says, well, again, sort of editorializing here, but Saul, saying during the plot of Wexler v. Goodman in season 5 of Better Call Saul about how it would never happen again, Kim even herself says that's a lie. And I feel like this was basically her breaking point here with everything that happened. And then just to, again, they talked about this as well in the Insider podcast about how this is just an unbelievably just sort of gut-wrenching scene here. And it really makes Kim look terrible, where she really has to just like lie to Cheryl Hamlin's face like this and tell this absolute fabrication. And they sort of describe this as Kim's breaking point here, where they sort of described it as she was almost taken aback by how good she is at this, and where it almost sort of shocked her to her very core how good of a liar she was, and how it truly made her realize that, in many respects, maybe she's not a good person. And again, like I talked about in my video earlier this week, is her no longer being a lawyer. I mean, that is a tragic ending, but is it enough of punishment for everything that Kim did? Again, I'm not really sure. And sort of with this very sort of, I mean, pretty cryptic scene here of Kim taking the oath to be a lawyer. I mean, is are we going to sort of see a sort of tying of the bow on this and sort of giving Kim Wexler a happy ending? Because I go back to a character like Jesse Pinkman, who, in the end, in El Camino, yeah, he ended up getting his happy ending. And again, Jesse did a lot of not good things in the plot of Better Call Saul, that's for damn sure. I mean, I think back to the murder of Gail Bedecker with Jesse Pinkman. And again, I know you can sort of, in a very sort of, what's the word I'm looking for, even like theoretical sense, you could argue it as self-defense, but it really wasn't. I mean, it was basically first-degree premeditated murder. I mean, to what he did to Gail Bedecker. I mean, I don't know if you can argue in court, Your Honor, I'm a meth manufacturer, and I work for a drug kingpin, and me and my partner were worried that our boss was going to kill us, so I killed our replacement to save our lives. I don't know if that holds up in a court of law, and I definitely think Jesse, that sounds like a sentence of life in prison to me. But again, at the same time, I'm kind of comparing this to maybe Kim not suffering enough punishment for what she did to Howard, maybe. And I think back to, of course, what Jesse had to go through with Jack Walker and his crew, where he effectively had to be a sort of, for lack of a better term, a meth cook slave for months, and just having to see everything that happened to Andrea and everything like that. Again, that's a whole nother story. I have a lot of opinions of that as well. But you wonder again, when after Kim Wexler leaves at the end of this episode and Saul Goodman sort of goes about his life and we don't see Kim, I just wonder what Kim has been doing for this entire year. And, maybe it sort of doesn't make her look like a very good person if she's just sort of able to find, someone else and sort of a new career and have a relationship with someone else and something to that effect. Maybe that's, again, it doesn't make her look very good, but you wonder what happens to Kim with this sort of maybe, does she go into this sort of downward emotional spiral, maybe depression or something to that effect? And how do you sort of portray that on screen where it's not incredibly dark and sad? Again, so just a lot more questions than answers. And like I said, after listening to the Insider podcast, I definitely don't think this is, they sort of hinted at it, like how while this show kind of, or at least that episode was kind of a sort of metaphorical end to a lot of characters. It was the metaphor of endings where we see the ending of Kim Wexler and Jimmy McGill. We see the sort of ending of Gus Fring's, I guess, problems with the cartel. We see some of those things, but again, I think it was it, again, I forget, it was maybe the director of the episode, but is it Michael Morris, is that his name? I might have butchered that name, but he's basically saying like, I'm not saying this is the end of Kim necessarily, but again, I just think there's absolutely no way that this is the end of Kim by any stretch of the imagination. At Parker Johnson, again, kind of going off on that's actually a pretty good question there in respect to the Sandpiper money, because when Jimmy and Kim were husband and wife, they were, I guess, entitled to half of it each, I suppose. But again, we don't know what happened. We don't know if even Kim was able to take any of that money. Based on the way Saul Goodman was living at the end of this episode, I definitely think he took his share of that, almost $2 million and put that to work. But again, you wonder if Kim sort of took any of that money. And where, again, it kind of goes to, the sort of blood money, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for, metaphor that Jesse Pinkman gave to Walter White, where, yeah, Kim can feel very emotionally terrible, and she can, quit the law and feel like she doesn't deserve any of this, but at the same time, can she really keep the blood money, if you will? Can she keep, which it effectively is, I mean, can she keep this blood money that they got from Howard Hamlin's death and just go about her life? I mean, we know Saul could. Absolutely, Saul could keep the money for sure, and I definitely think he did. But yeah, that's a great question at Parker Johnson about whether Kim took any of the Sandpiper money. So yeah, at Saad Assad, I don't think she took the money. She liked the thrill of it. Yeah, again, it wasn't even, again, like Howard Hamlin said in the end of the episode entitled Plan and Execution, like screw the money, you did it for fun. It's what Kim even said. It wasn't about the money at all. It was about the thrill of it. It was about, it was like Walter White said, I was alive. I was good at it. And again, I apologize. Someone in that I made a super chat comparing Kim to Walter White in the previous live stream. I forgot. I apologize. I forgot who it was. But yeah, that's actually a really great comparison for sure in respect to it not being about the money at Saad Assad. Yeah, at the pattern slice, 9900, Kim back in Nebraska, probably living with her mom. That's who Carol Burnett is playing. Yeah, I could see that for sure. Again, we've seen a lot of foreshadowing and things to that effect, like I talked about in that previous video about the black and white Nebraska license plates. And where else would Kim go? Sort of maybe getting back to her roots and sort of maybe saying, maybe I shouldn't have left this place all along. Maybe I should have just stayed here and I shouldn't have, trudged out to Albuquerque. Yeah, Joseph Wong. I saw someone mention that earlier about Kim being pregnant. I mean, based on the time jump, I mean the kid was already born. I guess it is possible. Um, yeah, I mean I don't know Star Wars too well, but I guess that has some right. Wasn't the who were those characters? Wasn't Han Solo and Leia sort of they were the sort of redemption that you're sort of talking about? The kids who were born out of Darth Vader and who was the Padme, right? Was that the his I don't know what you call him, wife? So yeah, at Rich EMC, that's a really I mean, I kind of tend to agree. I mean, Nebraska makes a lot of sense, for sure. But again, you do wonder where again, that's sort of another sort of question in all of this where even though they broke up and even though Saul has clearly moved on in his life, you wonder, I mean, when he went back to Nebraska and when Ed the Disappearer said to him Nebraska, you wonder if he immediately thought, that's where Kim's from or that's where Kim went. You wonder if he even knew if he sort of kept tabs on Kim at all when they broke up after he was living his life. You wonder. Again, I guess this is what 2000 and 2000. Well, we're in 2005 right now, I suppose, but and you wonder just how easy it is to find someone. I mean, the internet isn't what it used to be. But again, by the time he disappears, it's 2010. But again, that's still the internet was pretty primitive compared to what it is now. So yeah, at beef testosterone. Yeah, Carol. Yeah, that is a good point. I mean, she is pretty small, but again, I don't know. It something to consider. I guess there's always cosmetics with shoes and things to that effect. So I like the Judge Papadumian theory as well for Carol Burnett, and you sort of wonder how that sort of pans into this entire story to begin with. But and it is kind of weird. Again, I just sort of just something I'm thinking about for sure. About I talked about it a little bit earlier. How my perception of Kim by definition has changed completely, but like I said, if she sort of got away with the whole thing and nothing happened to Howard, you really wouldn't feel that way about her. But I mean, I think it's sort of akin to what Charles McGill said to Jimmy McGill all the way back in season 1 of Better Call Saul. I believe in the episode entitled Pimento, where the law is sacred. If you abuse it, people get hurt. Deep down, I'm right. And again, with the way Jimmy and Kim were going, I mean, maybe it was just. I mean, I don't know if it could really get any worse than what happened to Howard Hamlin, but. Maybe if it wasn't this time, it was just kind of not if, but when the sort of, the horrible thing eventually happens with everything they're doing. And so again, like this horrible lie she had to tell to Howard's wife, Cheryl, where, she basically had to completely squash all suspicion that she had about Jimmy and Kim. And she did it perfectly by concocting this absolute fabrication where, even Clifford Maine buys into it because of the entire scam they pulled with the sort of baby powder and the throwing the prostitute out of the car in front of the restaurant, where she said, have you noticed any of this, even a sniff of it? And if Clifford Maine answered truthfully, it would have been yes. But as he says, this is not the time or place for it. So again, you just wonder if sort of Kim had been planning this for a while. I don't even know. I feel like this was just sort of a spur of the moment thing, and it sort of just popped into her head. With having to defend herself like this at Howard Hamlin's funeral. And again, as the creators said in the Insider podcast, this was truly her breaking point. And it's what caused her to leave the law. Again, I talked about it, how, again, it was sort of her entire reason for being. And again, we don't know how truly passionate she felt about it. I mean, just because she's not Charles McGill, it doesn't mean that she truly, I think she truly, genuinely loved helping people and, loved providing, less fortunate Americans with legal service that only millionaires could afford, as she said, I believe, in season 5 of Better Call Saul, in the episode entitled Something Unforgivable, when she was, concocting this theory about how to speed up the Sandpiper crossing settlements and eventually how to start up her pro bono practice. And again, I think it gave her a ton of fulfillment. I mean, I think she genuinely loved it. Like she said, it was the best day of her professional life when she finally left Schweigart and Coakley and got to basically devote herself entirely to her pro bono practice. So again, that was pretty tough for her for sure. But again, I see what a lot of people are saying in respect to maybe she still hasn't suffered enough. I mean, she's still, alive. She still gets to live the rest of her life. Sort of, any sort of semblance of normalcy for her is maybe unwarranted based on, what she did to Howard Hamlin, and sort of if she's sort of able to move on with her life in the same way that Saul is, does that sort of make her a less redeemable figure? And again, it's kind of true. I mean, there's those memes going around on Reddit about how whenever everyone wanted to see Jimmy McGill as Saul Goodman, but when you finally sort of see the true story that led up to that, it's pretty devastating to sort of see the sort of final product of all of that, to just see everything and all of the sort of, all of the truthfully death and destruction that was left in the wake of Jimmy becoming Saul Goodman, and all of the people who suffered and all the people who died. I mean, it's pretty sobering to think about it. And again, just unbelievable writing by the creators in this series. I've been totally immersed. I've really had, I don't think, any complaints with season 6 of Better Call Saul so far. Again, I know the sort of little bit of a lull between Nacho's death and Howard's death. I know some people were maybe not the biggest fans of all the setup, and from time to time, that boxing scene and kind of comes to mind. But overall, I just think the writing is just unbelievable. I mean, the sort of, when we first saw Jimmy McGill as Jimmy McGill, all the way back in Uno as the the person who was doing public defender overflow work and was just struggling to make ends meet. And when I first see that, and I ask myself, how is this character eventually going to become Saul Goodman? I could have, never pictured anything, so well written and displayed to us with so many consequences and implications as we've seen over almost 6 entire seasons of this series, and I've enjoyed it absolutely. At Poddock, do you think Gene will ultimately die in the show? Again, I'm not too sure. I definitely don't know. I haven't, like I said, I really haven't had a. I guess we do have to sort of think about a little bit the Kim and Gene reuniting, maybe. And again, at the same time, maybe this sort of teaser, if it's not a flashback to Kim taking the oath initially, maybe it's her being reinstated as a lawyer. But again, I just wonder what Kim's life is like right now. I mean, is she truly in a sort of death spiral? Is that meme that, I mean, I don't know if it's as bad as the meme about, before we saw Kim with Wendy, Kim is Wendy. I mean, does she sort of go about, I mean, I don't want to, say she's going to mimic that life completely, but is she going to become, is she going to maybe turn to drugs and alcohol to cope with her emotional distress that she's suffering clearly as a result of all of this? I mean, is she someone who's going to go to therapy and try to work it out that way? I mean, it just, it's so interesting because, like I talked about with characters like Gus Fring, I mean, you root for these characters, and even characters like Mike Ehrmantraut, you root for all of these people, but at the same time, it's just their actions are just so ambiguous. And again, they talked a little bit about that scene with Mike and Manuel Varga that happened at his upholstery shop in the previous episode, where that I talked about it in my live stream as well, about how Manuel Varga says to Mike that you're all the same, you're all gangsters, you're exactly like the rest of them. And even though we see Mike as this noble character in so many respects, I mean at the same time, he did a lot of very questionable things. Everything that happened with Werner, I mean, even when he sort of hit Hector's ice cream trucks, the unintended consequences of a completely innocent bystander, a good Samaritan, being killed in the plot of Better Call Saul. I mean, he sort of, all of his actions sort of indirectly led to the death of Howard Hamlin. I mean, so while he's in many respects noble and he gives that unbelievable speech to Saul Goodman, Jimmy McGill in the desert in the episode entitled Bagman about, I have people who are waiting for me, they don't know what I do, they never will, they're protected, that's why I do what I do. But again, despite the fact it's a little bit on that sort of Walter White spectrum where, yes, he's providing for his family and he cares about them, but, a lot of people suffer in order for, their families to be taken care of. So, again, it's one of the reasons why I'm clearly watching this show. I'm immersed with this show because it gives you a lot to think about. It's not like, there's nothing wrong with the show like a movie like a Mission Impossible, but Tom Cruise's character, he's pretty much just a good guy, and it's pretty straightforward. So, to be fair, I'm not too familiar with the that universe, but you get the metaphor. So. At Blue, I never really got on Team Howard. Sorry, I sort of missed the beginning of that conversation. So that's actually kind of interesting that at capital H. So now the diamonds are already in the wall. Is that the Sandpiper money? Actually, that's actually kind of interesting, and it kind of goes back to something I saw on Twitter floating around actually, and I think it might have been on Twitter. But anyway, so in respect to the sort of date of Better Call Saul. To start the next episode where we see the close-up shot of Saul Goodman's license plate in 05. I think someone asked Thomas Schnauz, who I believe is one of the creators. Yeah, he's one of the main writers and creators of the show. And someone asked him what year we are in. And I think he responded something to the effect of, like, I think we're in 07, which would sort of, again, that's a little bit questionable there. I guess Saul's driving around with expired tags. But at the same time, I'm not going to take that word as a gospel or canon for sure, because I think maybe he said, I think he's maybe trying to pull a fast one here a little bit, because at the same time, we have to remember that, he said before the episode entitled Planning Execution aired, he said that, this wasn't supposed to be the original ending. This was written as 13 consecutive episodes, so episode 607 isn't a traditional cliffhanger, and it absolutely was. So again, I don't know why he said 07, and actually at the same time, to go back to who asked the question here about the diamonds, capital H, about the diamonds are already in the wall. Is that the Sandpiper money? I think someone also asked him if the conversation that Francesca and Saul had in season 4 of Better Call Saul in the episode entitled Quite a Ride, if that was going to factor into season 6 of Better Call Saul. And if I'm not mistaken, he just responded like one word of no. He just basically said, no, it's not going to factor in. We're not going to address it at all. So again, I don't really know what to make of all of this, if he's being sincere, because again, with what he said about that cliffhanger, he definitely, again, was not telling the full truth, and he was sort of, embellishing a little bit where he was technically telling the truth, but he knew what he was trying to say there, where, this isn't a traditional cliffhanger. So, again, he did say around 2007, so I guess 2005 is around 2007, but that's actually kind of interesting, because actually going back to the Better Call Saul Insider podcast today that I listened to, and again, it's if you want to listen to it, most of the focus was actually on the sort of actual filming aspect of it. They didn't really talk too much about the actual story. It was much more devoted to the filming. And again, I'm blanking on the names, but again, they basically talked about how they are so meticulous in their filming, where, they'll shoot a shot, but if one little thing isn't right, they'll reshoot to sort of make it perfect. And I found that very interesting, because if that's the case, when they're filming that license plate that clearly says November of 05 as the expiration date on those plates tags, you would have thought that, they would have maybe asked someone if this is the right date or something to that effect. But at the same time, maybe they were thinking about just the actual sort of art of the shot as opposed to the material in it, because again, there was that sort of, again, maybe prop master error where we see Walter White's birthday on the divorce papers that Skylar wanted him to sign as September of '09, when the sort of based on at least the way the timeline has been sure of now, Walter White's birthday was in September of '08. So again, I'm not going to really take that as canon for sure. I really don't know what year we're in, to tell you the truth, and it definitely matters for sure in respect to Walter White and Jesse Pinkman's appearance in this upcoming episode. For seemingly so from what I've read, but. At Nick Russ, Walter died, Jesse got away, Gene has to go to prison, a complete holy trinity of endings. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely possible. I mean, you wonder though, I mean, the lasting shot of Saul Goodman is that he's going to be in prison. Again, it would actually be kind of it would be a complete switching of his original ending, because if Better Call Saul never materialized as a spinoff, he would have basically just sort of gotten away with the whole thing and would have more or less lived his own life. I mean, I guess in theory you could have said that maybe, I guess Patrick Kirby, even though he was on the lam, he theoretically could have gotten caught off screen or something to that effect, but just food for thought there. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's possible. I think it could be a very artistic ending to all of this. At Nick Russ, I'm sort of buying into the Gene in prison finality to his story for sure. But at the same time, again, you just wonder how Kim Wexler is going to factor in. And again, again, we could have this philosophical debate on, the sort of morality of Kim Wexler. I mean, we could do that until the cows come home. But again, I just wonder the sort of, even if there is a sort of reunion of these two characters, I definitely don't think it's going to be some sort of, 90s rom-com ending or anything to that effect with, Jimmy and Kim embracing or something like that. I think that is just way too redundant and simplistic. I wouldn't think that that would be the case whatsoever. So again, I just wonder how, if or how this reunion would even materialize, and maybe it will be. I don't even know. I mean, I sort of think about the very last shot that Walter White ever saw of Walter Jr. was just sort of him looking at him from a distance, and that was the sort of goodbye that he got to see to his that was the only goodbye he got to have to his son. And of course we have to remember, I believe it was in Granite State, where he basically told him off completely after he tried to send him that money, where basically he basically told him, just you killed Uncle Hank, why don't you just die already? So again, it's very ambiguous there for sure, where, he loved his son and he wanted to leave his son with, money, but his son basically told him to, go F himself. I want nothing to do with you. So again, very sort of ambiguous, nuanced ending there for sure. And again, is that going to be the actual ending of Jimmy and Kim? I mean, of course not. I mean, it's not a one-for-one comparison, but I would just imagine the sort of ending of those two characters being somewhat like that for sure. And by that, I mean, much more artistic than I don't think it's going to be some sort of, passionate embrace between those two characters to do the French pronunciation of embrace. So, if that's even how you say it. Yeah, beef testosterone for sure. Making things, totally unpredictable and increasingly difficult for sure. I agree. That's sort of the raison d'etre, if you will, of this show for sure. So was that true at Pablo Wayne? Was the taupe Taurus what he drove there? Again, they didn't even talk about it on the Insider podcast, I don't believe. I mean, I'm not sure if it was the same car. I mean, Lalo had it in his possession, and Lalo, was deceased, and so Mike said that he'd get his car back. But again, it definitely didn't look like he was driving his Volvo for sure, and I did wonder what car he was driving. But that would be something if he if he was driving that brown Ford Taurus for sure. So at Alistair Moore, what if they reunite in prison? I mean, aren't men's and women's prisons separate federal prisons? I don't think they have co-ed prisons, so I don't know how you would really show that. I mean, maybe as if you're not talking about Kim going to a jail, maybe as a representing Gene. I could see it. That could be something for sure. Did he drive that Volvo again? It was kind of hard to see in the dark, so was it sort of a an Easter egg, sort of? But again, I mean, the rest of those cars were kind of like muscle cars. I mean, I feel like there wouldn't be a brown Ford Taurus anywhere near Don Eladio's hacienda at Pablo Wayne. I guess I could sort of. I think I have the episode pulled up here. I think I could even check. All right, let's just try to check here. Again, it's kind of hard to see. It goes away. So, is it here in the shot? And again, I didn't think that he drove his Volvo there. It didn't look like it. So, yeah, at Lewis A9, need to see Tuco. I mean, I don't know if we need to see Tuco. I want to see Tuco for sure. I mean, there was that piece of dialogue in is this it right here? Second from the right at Pablo Wayne. There is that piece of dialogue actually during this meeting where, in order to keep the peace, that Don Eladio says to Gus that I guess the South Valley area of New Mexico and Mexico will be Salamanca territory, and everything north of that will be Gus Springs territory. So again, could Tuco appear? I think maybe. So I mean maybe, but again, I don't think it's necessary for sure. I don't think it's going to be absolutely necessary. And again, with only 4 episodes left, I mean, maybe we'll see Kubi, fingers crossed. I mean, even seeing someone like Patrick Kubi, my what's the word I'm looking for? Just the level of certainty that I think he's going to appear is rapidly dissipating. And even I don't think we're going to, I mean, maybe we could see characters like Declan and Kubi and characters like that, but again, I just feel like I don't know, and I don't know, and if they are displayed, how will they be displayed? How much on-screen time will they have? I mean, even when we go back to Spooge and Saul, we only saw the sort of the pre-meeting. We didn't even see what they talked about, and in reality, we didn't have to. We absolutely didn't have to whatsoever. We just had to sort of, based on Saul Goodman's dialogue that he said to Walter White in season 2 of Breaking Bad, in the episode entitled Better Call Saul, about he was a client of mine. Truthfully, I mean, they didn't really have time or really need to sort of concoct some sort of very intricate backstory to Spooge. And it's actually kind of interesting, you know? I mean, even with Spooge's character, I mean, we saw him, of course, not a full-fledged meth addict in season 6 of Better Call Saul, even though he'll become one. But again, it's sort of implied how that's going to happen. He's just going to start using meth. So, I mean, I just think a lot of the sort of implied storylines won't necessarily need to be displayed to us, not every single one. And you even wonder if characters like Huel Babineau will appear in these final 4 episodes, because of course we know he didn't appear, I believe, until season 4 of Breaking Bad, the episode entitled Box Cutter. And of course at the time it was actually heavily implied that, you know, Saul hired Huel after Mike threatened to break his legs. But of course now, well, again, that seems to be the case. But again, the question is, why didn't he hire him before that? And again, that's a good question. I mean, I could talk about that for forever, and maybe it will be displayed to us. But again, you wonder. Again, the story kind of just the way it's sort of finished here with Saul Goodman's just sitting in his office, where it's weird. I almost sort of, to tell you the truth, if I can sort of find the scene here. See if I can find. It's too far. It's gonna be tough to find the scene exactly. There we go. But anyway, so again, this isn't the super close-up shot, but to tell you the truth, in many sort of I don't know the word I'm looking for, but just sort of you know, trying to come up with what the ending of Better Call Saul would eventually be. Part of me actually, for a while, before we found out that, you know, Walter White and Jesse Pinkman were going to appear and they were going to display a more intricate backstory, but to tell you the truth, part of me thought that this would just be the very last scene of the series, where it would just be Saul sort of sitting in his office maybe even a couple years before Breaking Bad even started. I was starting to get to the point where there was such removal from the Breaking Bad timeline, and we were so removed from September of '08 when we were in season 4, season 5 of Better Call Saul. And I'm trying to think. So yeah, season 4 of Better Call Saul. We were still in the year 2003, and I was thinking, I mean, like maybe the show isn't even going to be dedicated to the sort of Breaking Bad timeline or even the sort of very immediate uh history prior to the Breaking Bad timeline. Maybe it's going to be devoted more to the distant future or the distant past of the Breaking Bad timeline. And I almost a lot of me thought that the last thing shot would be just Saul sitting in his office. Something to that effect. Of course, we'd have to factor into the sort of Gene timeline as well. Maybe the Gene sort of story would have been figured out before that. Again, this was just me sort of, having random hypotheses thrown up on the drawing board. But again, the way the show ended, it's truly so open-ended. We just really don't know where it's going after this. It really could go anywhere. That's what sort of makes me so excited for Monday, where really it could go absolutely anywhere. And it's completely open-ended. And like they talked about in the Insider Podcast, I think there's no way we've seen the last of Kim. I mean, she might not appear in the next episode. That's definitely a possibility for sure. Where, it's kind of crazy. I think if my memory serves me correctly, I think Kim has appeared in every single episode of Better Call Saul except for 5-0, if I'm not mistaken. That was the episode that was completely devoted to Mike Ehrmantraut's backstory of moving from Philly to Albuquerque. And, we have those in the very beginning, we see the scenes of Saul representing him at MDC, but I don't think Kim was in that episode. But I think she's been in more or less every episode but one. So it's even sort of crazy to think that, maybe Kim Wexler won't appear in the next episode, but it's definitely possible that she doesn't. I definitely do. I think we'll see Mike and Gus for sure. I think we'll see them as well, just based on me listening to that podcast. But yeah, just completely open-ended. And, as I think it was, I forgot who said it. Might have been Beef Testosterone. I'm not sure. I apologize if I'm misquoting, but it's so true. It's just completely unpredictable as always. And, heading into these last 4 episodes, I don't even know where it's going. At Gary Mercado, yeah, I mean, she'll definitely be seen again. I mean, he kept the stopper. I mean, we know from that flashback scene that happened in Wine and Roses, he kept a lot of stuff from his Jimmy McGill days. I mean, there was the ping pong balls, or the bingo balls, I guess, if you will, where he kept the hat that he used to film that initial Saul Goodman ad about the commercials, about making commercials. He kept the shoes. He kept all sorts of things. I mean, he kept the guitar that he used to scam that music shop, well, that he got as a result of scamming that music shop. So he kept a lot of things for sure. Again, I think he buys it. Again, he may have even bought it off screen at Gary Mercado. I think it's definitely possible. It's weird. I mean, so much of this season has been implied, where it was just sort of implied that Lalo Salamanca somehow got that body back to his hacienda to fake his own death. I mean, we'll never know. We'll never know the step-by-step process. Just based on the way they paced the first couple of seasons, like I said, you could probably have an entire season, or not an entire season, but like a couple episodes just based on that plot of Lalo getting the body to the hacienda. But just based on the nature of the pacing, I think it's even sort of implied. I mean, he definitely bought it from Caldera, because Caldera had it, and now it's in Saul's possession, and he said he's leaving town, and he said he's selling his black book, and Saul bought it. So again, do we have to sort of see that sort of exchange at Gary Mercado? It would be nice to see, but I definitely don't think we have to see it by any means. And just based on the pacing of the show, I don't think we will see it at Gary Mercado. Yeah, Justin Cruz, I tend to agree. Again, I don't know what the final, how it will finally materialize, but Kim in the Gene timeline definitely seems to be the case. And is it her representing Gene as a lawyer again? That'd be something there for sure. at Hannah. Yeah, yeah, me too. I mean, Tina Parker was on the Insider podcast, so it was sort of interesting to hear a little bit about her experience working on the show. So, and again, as I talked about, if we listen to Thomas Schnauzens, who says it's around '07, he also said that the show isn't going to address Saul Goodman's dialogue from the episode entitled "It's Escaping Me." Quite a ride. So. At Gabriel Schuster, isn't it nearly the time when Walt gets to Saul's office? Depends what year it is. That is the $10 million question, for sure. At Gabriel Schuster, we just don't know. So, and again, I mean, it is true. I mean, people did bring up the that dialogue that Saul had when he was going about his morning routine, sort of hearing almost sort of a cold calling, if you will, of his various clients for the day, where he said, he made that public masturbator line where he said another one, and of course a lot of people sort of thought, is this immediately before he met Walter White, because of course he represented Brandon Mayhew right before Walter White walked in his office, a couple days before likely that Walter White walked into his office, but just based on everything, where even if Thomas Schnauz says we're around '07 and the tags on his car say we're in November of '05, I mean we are way away from that. That wasn't until, I mean, that was season 2 of Breaking Bad, so that was well into '08. That was probably December, maybe November of '08, if my memory serves me correctly. So, I think it was just sort of a little bit of a joke there, a little bit of a callback to Breaking Bad, if you will. It wasn't a indication that he was right about to meet Brandon Mayhew or anything to that effect. And in the grand scheme of things, you even it doesn't even seem necessary. I mean, maybe sort of. I don't know. I mean, if Walter White would appear in a scene in that capacity, I mean, what information could they tell us about that sort of time with Walter White that we don't already know? That is my question. So, with there just being so little time, and with Walter White appearing in the storyline, somehow you would imagine that whatever happens with Walter White and Jesse Pinkman you would imagine that whatever happens, the backstory with him and Saul is going to be incredibly consequential. That makes us rethink about the plot of Breaking Bad and view it in a completely different light. Excuse me. So I'm trying to think how, the sort of immediate, the right before him meeting Walter White, like what about that sort of time, having a new scene of that period of time, what additional information could that give us? So I guess the premise of that scene is Albuquerque appears to have quite the public masturbation problem, where Saul says another one, and then down in 2008, he mistakes Brandon Mayhew for a client who was arrested for that. So it's amazing, quite the trend in Albuquerque. So. Again, at Parker Johnson, do you think we'll see how Saul gets his office, or excuse me, gets his car, or gets his office renovated, or gets the inflatable Lady Liberty, like a montage or something? Yeah, it could be possible, but again, I talked about this a little bit earlier. I just think a lot of these plots are just sort of implied. I mean, at least at this point, I mean, maybe we could get a montage scene at Parker Johnson, but at this point, it just sort of implied that Jimmy and Kim broke up, and Saul basically just kind of spiraled into this sort of way of life, and it would, he just got these things. We don't know why. I mean, it's sort of implied about how, again, all those things are sort of implied. I mean, maybe he was sort of inspired by the Kettlemans. That's why he got the inflatable Lady Liberty. Why did they renovate the office? Again, it's sort of implied in season 6 of Better Call Saul when Francesca first designs it. There's no barrier between her and the clients. They're putting their cigarettes out on the very nice furniture. Now there's just sort of very basic, boring furniture. I mean, people were urinating in Saul's office, so it's sort of implied that they sort of had to just change the office at Parker Johnson, where Francesca needed that, thick layer of glass separating her from the clients. And in respect to the car, again, it's sort of implied where Marco had that conversation with him in season 1 of Better Call Saul about how, if Slippin' Jimmy's a lawyer, I would imagine you'd be driving a white caddy all over town making banks. So again, all of this is sort of implied a little bit. And again, if you know the backstory of the show well, you can really put the puzzle pieces together at Parker Johnson. So It's again, you would like to see it, but just based on the pacing of this show of this season, like I talked about, it really doesn't seem like it's gonna happen. And I guess you're sort of just reliant on really knowing the backstory of Saul Goodman's character. So yeah, at Facade Games, I hope we don't see the ball cap, but you never know. So yep, at JSNYNK18. Yeah, Thomas Schnauz did say it's around '07, but he also said 607 wasn't a classic cliffhanger. So again, I really don't know what to make of that, especially with the creators talking on the Insider podcast about how they're very meticulous about all the shots, and we see of like a 3 to 4 second close up of that tag. So you wonder what that's all about. At Jay, that's an interesting theory. I think Saul knew Gus all along and lied to Walt. Again, I don't know. It's definitely possible for sure, but you wonder why he. I mean, maybe Mike told him to lie or something to that effect. But I do remember the creators saying that one of the reasons why Saul couldn't interact with Gus is because of that piece of dialogue from season 2 of Breaking Bad. What was the name of that episode? I believe it was Mandela. Was it Mandela when Walt first meets Gus Fring, if I'm not mistaken? Someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know. It's definitely possible. My interpretation of it was he was being sincere, and again, the way I sort of see it is that he knows Mike Travis's PI. He knows, just based on everything that happened with Lalo Salamanca, that it's likely that he works for someone who's in the same line of business as Lalo. And at the same time, when he finally met Walter White, he sort of put the puzzle pieces together where, this person has a real product here, and I can introduce him to my PI's contact, and we can make a lot of money here. And his PI is looking for the boss of the PI is looking for someone exactly like Walter White. So again, I don't know if he's sort of lying here. Again, I don't know if he's going to know about Gus. I actually made an entire video about this for sure. You can go back and watch it, about the sort of backstory of Gus Fring and Jimmy and Saul Goodman. It's on my channel. It's you can definitely watch it. I really go in pretty in depth, so I don't want to repeat myself too much. I think it's like over 18 minutes long, so you can go watch that for sure. But that's just sort of my opinion. But yeah, at the same time, it's definitely possible he's lying. But I break that plot down in pretty much in pretty full detail if you want to check that out. So at Tim McAway, you're too nice, man. The most knowledgeable screwball. I actually want to take this moment to correct myself. I realized I made an error in my previous video. I said that scene that Asak Merker was talking with Steve Gomez and Hank Schrader about how Gus Fring went over to his house for a cookout, and how he brought Chilean sea bass and told him how to cook it in that aluminum foil pouch. That actually took place in the next episode, in the second episode of season 5. It was in Madrigal. It wasn't in Live Free or Die. I think I misstated myself there. So I want to take this moment to correct myself. But I appreciate the compliment at Tim McElwain. So yeah, Justin Cruz. I don't think we're gonna see Howard's funeral. I mean, we saw the sort of the service afterwards, but I don't. Again, like Rich Schweiger said, there wasn't even a body to put in the ground. So no, I don't think we're gonna see the funeral again. Like I said, with just there being so little time on screen, they really have to choose the scene sparingly. And I think they're doing a great job, to tell you the truth, of really, like I said, the pacing has just been impeccable. Where they're telling a lot of the story and they're leaving out a lot. But again, it's not like it's their plot holes by any means. It's definitely, a lot of it is just implied, just based on everything that we know about the backstory of Breaking Bad, as well as things that were displayed to us over the course of this season. So again, we didn't have to see the service. That the memorial service was much more, or at least whatever you call the service afterwards, was much more important, because that confrontation that Kim had with Cheryl Hamlin, that was truly the sort of meat and potatoes of that scene. So yeah, great. At Gabriel Schuster, we saw Howard's funeral in the lab. You're damn right. You are damn right there. That's a great point. Very, very unceremonious. Kind of. I don't know if anyone here has seen Amadeus, but it reminded me of that a little bit. The scene when Mozart is buried in that common grave. very unceremoniously. This just unbelievable musical genius just tossed in a common grave, like like anyone else. It kind of reminded me of that a little bit. Great movie, by the way. I mean, I would really recommend Amadeus. I mean, quite different from Better Call Saul and Breaking Bad, but unbelievable movie. And yeah, great point there, Gabriel Schuster. I guess that was Howard's funeral. You are damn right. That is a hell of a point there for sure. Yeah, JSN YNK18, they're putting on a masterclass on how to produce a television show. I would agree. I would agree. I think it's just been absolutely amazing this season. Ooh, at Nick Russ. Here's hoping Gene clears Howard's name in the end. He deserves it again. I don't know how that. I mean, so you're basically saying by clearing his name, where you kind of say he was murdered as opposed to him committing suicide. Again, I don't know if that's going to happen, to tell you the truth. I mean, as I see what you're trying to get, I see what you're going for there at Nick Russ for sure. But again, it's just, I feel like it kind of just takes away the sort of tragic nature of all of it, where the characters in the know, like Jimmy and Kim, they know, and Mike and Gus, they know for sure. But at the same time, the rest of the public doesn't. So again, that's an interesting point. I don't know if we're gonna see a plot like that for sure. But I see what you're getting at there. That's actually pretty interesting. At Nick Russ, what you're going for there. So at Toe Cutter, you say Howard deserves to be cleared and Kim deserves to be in prison. I mean, in many respects, she does deserve to be in prison, but to tell you the truth, Jesse Pinkman does absolutely as well. Like I talked about earlier in the stream. I mean, the murder of Gail Bedecker right there, I mean, that is cold cut, first degree, premeditated murder through and through, like I talked about earlier. So, I mean, a lot of these characters, Mike deserves to be in prison. Gus deserves to be in prison. All of them do. But like I talked about earlier in my stream, there's just sort of ambiguity of all of this is what just makes this so thought provoking and just such a great show, and really sort of makes you think for a long time after it ends, or at least after every episode ends. So. And like I talked about, I mean, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here, but it's been reported, not just rumors, that Walt and Jesse are appearing in the next episode. And I definitely have a lot of thoughts on Jesse Pinkman for sure. That's the sort of one thing I've yet to talk about, El Camino, in respect to this universe. And like I said, I talked about it a little bit today, but I have some even more thoughts on Jesse Pinkman that I will get to maybe next week after his reemergence in the story on Monday. So we'll see. At Nero, Jesse Pinkman's parents should be in prison for sneaking a meth-contaminated property past the buyer. I don't know. Maybe for sure. I don't know how long of a sentence that would be, but yeah, that's funny. And yeah, I mean, at the same time, I mean, sort of, getting back to the Jimmy and Kim ending, I mean, I also, like I said, in addition to this teaser here that I talked about earlier in the stream about how, Kim taking the oath here, and maybe with the benefit of hindsight, she is actually becoming a lawyer again after leaving the law in the previous episode. There is also that teaser of Gene Takovic, likely putting on that red coat and becoming Saul once again. And, I talked about that teaser a little bit earlier in the week about how there's that very sort of cryptic promo for the next episode. I think it's, I probably can find it here. But yeah, this one right here, where he's saying, he's saying 1, 2, 3 action, like Armani suits, Air Jordan sneakers, Lennon shirts. It's all free. Again, I wonder what's going on here. It's kind of, it's interesting for sure, because I'm thinking back to the sort of 3 teasers that we've seen so far of, after all that, a happy ending, and it showed the black and white scene of Jimmy and Kim's apartment all cleaned up. And then, of course, the next teaser for 609 was Saul saying to Kim, the speech that Mike Ehrmantraut gave to him in Bad Choice Road, and it was a black and white shot of Saul Goodman's office. So here we get them all. And again, I hadn't even really considered that maybe it would be Gene Takovic speaking in that teaser, because the voice and mannerisms were just so akin to Saul Goodman. So I just wonder. You do wonder if the Gene putting on the red coat again. I'm sort of putting on my theory cap here about Gene putting on the coat. It's sort of reverting back to his Saul Goodman mannerism and sort of personality. That's really sort of an act that he plays up a little bit. So just a lot of food for thought here. And again, the the weekend will be over before we know it, and we'll be seeing this episode for sure. So. At Francisco Lazo, favorite episode of the season so far. I mean, to be honest, it would have to be Rock and Hard Place and Plan and Execution for sure. I mean, those are probably my two favorites, without a doubt. And yeah, absolutely. Again, other great ones. I mean, those two are probably like would be I don't know those tier list things. I'm not too familiar with those, but theirs are up there. Again, I thought Point and Shoot was pretty great, but again, the air really kind of came out of the balloon for me for sure when Lalo Salamanca confronted Gus because I knew his time was coming. I knew it was over. So that sort of was a little bit not disappointing, but it was kind of like, oh my goodness, I see it coming a mile away. And again, I loved. Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name. Fun and Games as well was just unbelievable. So again, I've really enjoyed this season through and through. Just unbelievable. Just unbelievable writing. It's crazy to think. I mean, it's not too crazy to think it is the final season. Three of the main characters were killed off, and it's yeah, it's been an unbelievable season. Lewis A9, yeah, the Holly White spinoff. Yeah, maybe so. Who knows? Maybe so. Alistair Moore, you're excited for the weekend to end. I'm definitely living in the moment. I'm gonna enjoy the weekend for sure. That's for damn sure. But also looking forward to Monday. So there you go. I guess cognitive dissonance, maybe. I'm not too sure. So. And so yeah, I mean, it definitely sort of I guess I know there's no way. I mean, I guess it's technically possible, but yeah, Kim was not behind the scenes. She was not a silent partner. I know that theory was sort of floating out there for a while, even back in like season 4 or 5, but it's that didn't happen for sure. So definitely not a silent partner. And again, sort of heading into the next episode, the big question is sort of again, like I talked about, Kim has appeared in basically every single episode except for one of this entire series. And while we maybe won't see her in the next episode, at the same time, I'm very kind of, I'm curious to see when we will see her. And again, I have absolutely no idea what she's doing right now. We know, like I talked about earlier, she's just racked with just unbelievable emotional guilt. But again, like you wonder, does she just move on with her life? Like, how does she cope with all of this guilt? What does she do? I mean, is she gonna work at that hinky dinky that she talked about? Where she was, what was going to be the course for her life if she didn't come out to Albuquerque? Like, what is she gonna do? I mean, I don't know if she's just gonna lay down and die, to sort of quote Walter White about him, what he was gonna do in the aftermath of Drew Sharp. Again, another sort of piece of collateral damage that Mike's actions, as noble as he comes across, is the sort of another just piece of collateral damage that happens to his character as well. So at Lewis A9, we'll see her in episode 12, my prediction. Yeah, I mean, so what? We have 10, 11, 12, 34 more left. So second to last. And again, you wonder if I mean, maybe we'll start out with the Gene Takovic sort of a flashback in the next episode. It's definitely possible. Still have yet to see him again. I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, you wonder. I mean, at this rate, I mean, who knows? Maybe we won't see him until the very last episode, and the whole last episode will be devoted to Gene. Who knows? So, again, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself here when I sort of talk about the next episode on Sunday. But yeah, so again, like I sort of talked about. Like I think this reunion is happening just based on everything with the sort of happy ending dialogue with the sort of Kim. I mean, again, my interpretation of this teaser in hindsight is her becoming a lawyer again, just everything that has happened with, you know, I mean, just everything that's how do I phrase this? Just again, I just feel like they're just not. It would just be almost too dark of an ending, maybe for sort of Gene to just I don't know, just die or accept his fate all on his own. So, and again, it's just so nuanced here, where you root for these two characters in many respects, but at the same time, like I said, you root for all of them. You root for every single one of them in many respects, but at the same time, it's there's a lot of nuance. Even the noble, honorable characters like Mike, they still do a lot of questionable things, and maybe you can sort of justify it, this or that or whatever. But it's definitely food for thought for sure. So at Emily McGragan, I apologize for the name. She would have made a good social worker. Yeah, I'd say so for sure. You wonder again. Maybe that's what she's doing. I mean, she still wants to, help people. Maybe again. I mean, she clearly feels like she can't be a lawyer anymore. She can't. She doesn't almost deserve to do that. But at the same time, it's like again, I don't even. Where's the nuance? She's like, is she gonna truly like lay down and die, or how does she live her life guilt free, or is she always gonna have this sort of anchor of guilt? Again, a lot of nuance, and there's no way that this is the end of Kim Wexler. That's sort of the point I'm getting at here. There's no way that this is it for her. Just based on at least me based on that listen, and just based on how my interpretation of the way the story is going. So. Yeah, Brian, see, it's an interesting point you raised with Emilio. I could see that if we truly are in the sort of distant past, the sort of '05, I could definitely see the sort of story. I mean, it seems pretty predictable, but also it makes a lot of sense. The sort of Jesse and Emilio story, and Saul representing Emilio, and Jesse sort of getting wrapped up in that somehow. I could definitely see that for sure. So makes a lot of sense to me, especially if we're in '05. So. That toe cutter, that's funny, man. Yeah, I think it was 80 million actually. If you listen to Walter, if you at J Ladybug, according to Walt, it was 80. So, and so yeah, again, that's the big question of it, and I'm definitely planning on talking about again if and when Jesse Pinkman returns on Monday. Like I said, I definitely have some thoughts on El Camino for sure. Um, I think it's pretty obvious how I feel about it. And yeah, I'll definitely have some things to say about Jesse Pinkman for sure. In this, I'm gonna be talking about El Camino probably next week, and my opinions on. I'll talk a little bit about that film a little bit, about just my opinion on the film overall, but a lot of it is just going to be about the sort of the ending of Jesse Pinkman. And again, he got a very happy ending, sort of. I mean, he didn't get a sad ending. I mean, as Vince Gilligan even said before El Camino was sort of imagined, when he saw Jesse Pinkman driving that El Camino through that gate, I mean, he felt like he hoped he was driving off to a happier, better life. But again, I have some thoughts about that for sure. And just, like I've talked about, I really just feel like Jesse Pinkman. Again, I don't know. I just feel like people give him the benefit of the doubt a little bit too much, and really sort of all the bad things that happened to him in his life. I really just feel like people don't sort of. I really feel like they don't sort of lay the right amount of responsibility at Jesse Pinkman's feet for everything he did. In kind of akin to. I mean, I feel like people are really sort of telling or not telling, but just sort of understanding how Kim was very culpable in what happened to Howard Hamlin, but. I don't know, just in many respects, I really feel like people think, oh, Jesse Pinkman is this tragic, misunderstood figure. But like Mike Ehrmantraut said, we all make our choices. And man, that's such a great speech. Those choices put us on a road. So pertinent, even in hindsight, with the plot of with it occurring in Better Call Saul, just based on the entire story of Breaking Bad. So. And yeah, Johnny Five Stacks, Kim. You say Kim deserves the happy ending. Gene needs to pay a little bit. Again, it's like I said, the thing I talked about at the very beginning of the stream. It's just the nuance of all these characters. It's why I love the show. And yeah, I don't want to repeat myself too much, but yeah, I definitely talked about that at the beginning of the stream. So, ooh, Saul Goodman, good evening as well. So, ooh man, so yeah, actually with Saul Goodman tuning in, yeah, I think at that I'm going to have to end it here. But I really appreciate everyone for tuning in tonight. It was nice to sort of just talk a little bit more about the ending of this previous episode. With it's like I said, it's crazy. I mean, I don't think Kim is going to appear in the next episode. Seemingly, who knows? I could be completely wrong, but it's so surreal because she's, like I said, she's appeared in basically every episode except for 5-0. So, but anyway, it was great to tune in tonight, and I really appreciate everyone for the chats and everything. Again, really enjoy doing these conversations. I really enjoy doing these streams, and like I said, I really do. I almost like these streams more than making videos sometimes, to tell you the truth. Because again, it was a long day for me for sure, and again, I like making videos for sure. But like I said, I've talked about sometimes you just don't. It's a lot. Again, it's like it's a lot of just grinding in front of a computer all by yourself. So it's definitely great to interact with the chat for sure sometimes. And I really enjoyed that tonight for sure. So at Johnny 5 Stacks, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. So, but yeah, I'll be live on Sunday for sure. Thank you again for the super chat, Johnny 5 Stacks. I'll be live, ready to rock and roll, talking about Walt and Jesse Pinkman appearing in this next episode, more or less, at least from the reporting that I've gotten. So yeah, really looking forward to it. Thank you everyone for tuning in tonight, and I will see you guys on Sunday. Maybe put out a video tomorrow. We'll see what my schedule's like. We'll see, but definitely be live on Sunday, and we'll definitely be live on Monday after the episode airs. So take care, everyone, and have a great rest of your evening. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Sunday.